October is here! It's Halloween time, and what better time to talk about my favorite horror movies? Now, I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite horror movies from 3 different series. All of them are really famous, Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. The reason why I'm talking about these series in one dedicated video is because when I make other videos later in October, I want to talk about a little more obscure stuff, or at least recommend other horror films that people probably haven't seen, because these are series that everyone's heard of. There's no one out there that hasn't heard of Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, but there might be someone out there who doesn't know who Chucky is from Child's Play. So that's why I'm kind of putting these 3 series together into one. Now, I'll probably talk about 1 or 2 movies per series, so we'll see where this goes. Now, the first, this is probably the first horror movie I really watched start to finish. I've been around horror movies my whole life, and I've seen tons of clips. I mean, I've said this story before, but when I was 6 years old, I went to my grandpa's house, and my dad threw on Dead Alive, and I saw a lot of it, but I didn't watch all of it. So, the first horror movie that I remember sitting down and watching all the way through was actually the first Halloween by John Carpenter. Now, one thing I really like about Halloween is that, and here's the thing, I love gore in movies. I love gore, it's so much fun to watch it. But sometimes, it makes it a little more threatening, or it doesn't, horror movies don't always have to show blood to be scary. That's one thing I really liked about Halloween, is that I was like, wow, there's hardly any blood at all in this. And it's still scary. It's not I think the point of slasher movies nowadays especially is that let's come up with the most over-the-top creative kills that we can get, which is fun and all, but for the movie that really started it, I sort of use that loosely, because you can go back in history and see other slasher movies before Halloween, but this is the one that brought it to the masses. This is the one that made it famous. And, they weren't really it wasn't about trying to do over-the-top kills like everyone else is trying to do. It was really trying to be a little more gritty, I think. Because, come on, man. When I see Jason Voorhees, kill someone who's in a sleeping bag by slapping them against a tree, I don't find that really scary. I find that kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie. But I remember the scene where Michael Myers is in the house, and he picks up one of the dudes. He picks up the dude. God, I can't remember his name. But he impales him to the wall with his knife. And I was like, that's horrific. Or the scene where he's kind of stalking everyone. And that's the one thing I love so much about Halloween. The first Halloween movie is that when Michael Myers is stalking people, it legitimately comes off as an actual stalker, pretty much. Sort of in the same way of Psycho. Or not Psycho, but, what was it? Scream. How, that made, how he was calling people who didn't have caller ID and they didn't know who he was. Sort of something like that, except here, he's behind bushes, and he's always wearing a boiler suit and his mask, and it comes off as a real, that's a real stalker in a way, I feel like. But, of course, main star of the show is Michael Myers, one of my first. Even though he was not the first one I heard about, I think growing up, everyone hears about Freddy Krueger first. Cougar. I almost said Cougar. Freddy Krueger, everyone. But, I remember, seeing Michael Myers and his mask, and I just, he has a very evil, unsettling presence whenever he's on screen. The expressionless mask kind of helps to provide that feeling of uneasiness and just a threat. And of course, I can't talk about Halloween without mentioning the music. It's probably my favorite horror movie soundtrack ever. I have it, and it's so wonderful to listen to it. And John Carpenter is, in my opinion, one of the greatest filmmakers ever. He has made so many great movies, The Thing, what was the name of that movie? Escape from New York. So many great movies that he's done, but I still think that Halloween is his best work. There's so many great scenes in this movie. There's so many I remember there's that scene where the kids are running out from school and they run into Michael Myers and they don't show his face for all of the movie. There's one scene where he does get his mask ripped off, and I always felt that is so creepy and weird. He runs into kids, but he's not gonna kill the kids. If you know what scene I'm talking about, it's pretty early in the movie actually. Now that I think about it, but also I gotta mention Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. Just phenomenal actor, and she's actually the daughter of, oh god, what's her name? She's in Psycho. She's this girl that was in the stabbing scene of Psycho. I can't remember her actual name off the top of my head, but that's her daughter, and I don't know, I always felt that was really really cool. She's also known as the Scream Queen, Jamie Lee Curtis, in Halloween. She does scream quite a bit in it. It's actually kind of funny. But I remember, the last chase scene is probably one of the best moments in cinema. Every time I watch it, I still feel tense about it. It's kind of like watching the Death Star run in A New Hope for Star Wars. Every time I watch it, I still feel excitement or a sense of dread in case of Halloween. And that's a sign of a good film right there. You watch it plenty of times and you still can feel excited for it. Now, the Halloween series was actually supposed to be an anthology. This is pretty well known now, but after Halloween 1, they then followed up with Halloween 2, which I think is a good movie. Definitely inferior to the original, but still a fantastic movie to watch. I think it's a worthy sequel of the Halloween movies, and it takes place right after the first one. Literally picks up right where the first one left off. And in that movie, they kill Michael Myers. I'm not really spoiling much here. The movie's 30 years old. And it's well, what's the direction? Where do we go from here? And, they kind of figured, hey, we should do that anthology idea. Sorry, my phone just went off and it bothered me for a second. And then they followed up Halloween 2 with Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which a lot of people seem to really don't like, which if you don't know that Halloween was originally supposed to be an anthology, that might be why it confuses you, even though we saw him die in the second movie, so figure that one out. But I think Halloween is a decent movie on its own. It's Halloween. There's a ton of things that can happen on Halloween that are creepy, dangerous, and all that stuff. I remember Halloween 3 especially. There's there's that kid who lays in the bed, or no, it's that girl who lays in the bed and she doesn't have any lips. Or the scene where, that one kid has the pumpkin mask and he, falls over and kills him. This movie kills kids. It's pretty ballsy. And, you can't ever get that Silver Shamrock jingle out of your head when you first see it. But yeah, Halloween 3, when it comes to the Halloween movies, the first 3 are really good. After that, and that's the thing that kind of happens with a lot of these horror movie franchises. They get sort of meh as they go on. It's alright, well, we've seen this a million times. What are they going to try to do now? Are they going to go to space? Are they going to go to, whatever? But actually, there's a few movies after Halloween 3 that I think are pretty decent. Or at least, watchable. And that would be Halloween 4. Actually, the first, the credit sequence of Halloween 4 is awesome. It's on, this creepy farm and everything, and all you hear is just, wind, and it's unsettling, and it's so awesome. And then there was Halloween H2O, which came out many years later. And, man, the series should have ended right there. It was such a perfect ending to a series. And then they followed that up with Halloween Resurrection and totally killed the ending of H2O, which, oh boy, that, I wasn't even around when that first came out, and that still annoys me to this day, because, like, you had the perfect way to end it, and you screwed it up because money. But yeah, Halloween. Check out the first 3 movies, check out H2O, and yeah, check out 4 if you want to. Excellent acting, excellent music, excellent movies. Can't go wrong with any of them. Alright, so the second one, Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, when it comes to Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm actually kind of torn on a lot of them, because I actually haven't seen as many of the Nightmare films as I've seen, because I've seen most of the Halloween movies. There's like a few I'm like, I don't even want to touch that. But the Nightmare movies, everyone can agree that 1 and 3 are the best ones. And man, it's really tough to pick which one is my favorite. Because I love Nightmare on Elm Street 1. It's just straight up horror. It is a terrifying movie. And then you kind of, because the thing with Nightmare is that it kind of gets funnier as it goes on, which I like both, you know, scary and, you know, comedy, you know, or let me rephrase that. I like it when Freddy is both terrifying and funny. Like it is, I do kind of enjoy that. However, as the series went on, I'm like, all right, it's starting to leer more towards comedy, which comedy and horror can be done right. I mean, look at the Evil Dead series. I mean, more specifically, Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. Excellent movies. But, yeah, Nightmare 2 was meh, but Nightmare 1 and 3 are so good. They're so good. And there's, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. That's another really good movie. I think 3 might be my favorite, though. It's just, because every time I watch it, I'm just like, this is amazing. You know, the action scenes are great. The horror, the dream sequences, I should say, are wonderful. They are just excellent. And, you know, as the series went on, the dream sequences got more over the top and ridiculous. Some of them were really cool and really good. Others, it was just like a bit overkill. But, because Nightmare 3. I mean, Nightmare 1 probably has my favorite kills out of the entire series. I will never forget the blood fountain. That's, you can't ever forget that scene. But Nightmare 3, it's so good. Like, there's not a whole lot you can say, but it's just so good. I love the kills in that movie too. They're just excellent. Probably my favorite kill is the one where Freddy is in the TV and he puts that girl through his screen and says, "Welcome to prime time, bitch," and crushes and kills her right there. And it's like, that's amazing. Let's see here. Wait, I mentioned Wes Craven's New Nightmare. That's a really good one. It's kind of a weird one too. Like, if I remember it correctly, it's like they bring Freddy out of the fictional reality into, you know, reality, and it's kind of weird how they do it. I haven't seen that one in such a long time, but it's a really good one. I remember that one being really good. Like, some of these movies I watch every year around Halloween. Like, Halloween 1 and 2 I watch every single year. Nightmare 3 and Nightmare 1 I watch every single year. Sometimes I'll sparingly watch another one of the series films, but most of the time I actually just watch movies strictly around Halloween. That's just when I feel like watching movies. But yeah, Nightmare 1 and 3, excellent movies to check out. Easily the best ones out of the series. And Freddy is just terrifying. I mean, what can I say? So, finally we come to Friday the 13th. First Friday the 13th is an excellent movie. Too bad I do feel like they ruined the ending, though. I mean, that scene where Jason comes up and pulls her into the water, it should have ended right there. That should have been it. But then it cuts to her, like, in the hospital or whatever. I'm like, you killed the ending. Yeah, that would have been the perfect place to end it, was just right there. She's in the water, fade it to black, call it good, and then roll credits. That should have been it. But still a great movie. And the other one I actually watch the most is Friday Part 6. I feel like that has, even though like the kills in that movie are kind of like, there are some that are really, really good. Like I will never forget when the sheriff jumps onto Jason, and Jason literally, like, so, you know, he's laying like this, like his back is right here. He flips him over like that, if that makes any sense. Like, if this is his upper body, it literally goes like it's amazing. I remember seeing it, I was like, oh my god, that was awesome. And, you know, there's some other kills in there that are like off-screen kills. There's that scene where the girl goes into the cabin, and then all you see is this, you know, you hear like the sound of a machete cutting through flesh, and then you see blood on the walls. And then it's like, oh, well, I kind of wanted to see what happened there. Now, you know, it's funny, I forget who said it. It was like, it must have been like Quentin Tarantino or Robert Rodriguez off of their movie From Dusk Till Dawn. It was like on their commentary, and they said that, you know, the MPAA, the people who rate movies, they hate the color red. Because, like, there's so many, I mean, the Friday movies especially, there are so many bloody kills in there. It's just like, oh my god. Like, if you've seen, like, some behind-the-scenes footage of it, there are some just gruesome fatalities in there that are just ridiculous and awesome. But they had to be cut out, which is such a shame. I hate it when that happens, when, you know, they try to make this, like, they just go over the top and everything, and yet it just gets cut down or cut out, and that is one thing that does irritate me a little bit, because, I mean, when you get to the point where it's like, oh, well, this dude has maggots on his face, and we can't show that, but we can show this dude's head getting cut off just fine, it's just like, whatever. But anyways, so Friday Part 1 and 6, I think, are the best ones. And, you know, it was funny, too. People, to this day, still think that Jason was the killer in the first Friday the 13th, when that's not true at all. It was actually his mother. It wasn't until the very... Again, that last scene. It wasn't until the very last scene when Jason killed someone, even though he didn't, which is such a shame. You know, nowadays, when I watch that movie, I end it right there. Because it is actually, like, even though I know that's not what happens in the story, that leaves you with, like, a feeling of dread, like, his mom's dead, but now Jason's coming to kill us. So, that's just a wonderful thing. But those are my recommendations for these three series. Halloween 1, 2, and 3, Nightmare Part 1 and 3, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and Friday the 13th Part 1 and 6. Those are excellent movies in those franchises. So I really gotta say, like, excellent choice on all of these. If you want to watch these, if you want to get into horror movies, I think these are good starting places. Well, in terms of like slasher movies, because I do feel like slasher movies are, like, they're definitely horror movies. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think those are the best places to start for horror movies. If you get what I mean there. So that's it. October is beginning. I can't wait to tell more horror. I can't wait to talk about more horror movies down the line this month. And see you guys next time.